Guys, our chapter 1 read for today is from the classic book Little Women by Louisa Alcott. I was going to read from this one, which is my mum's Sunday school prize copy, but as you can see it's barely hanging in there. So I remembered that when I was a little bit older I was bought this one where all the girls look like they should be in a Timothy advert. So here we go with chapter 1 of this much loved classic book. Chapter 1, Plain Pilgrims. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Jo, lying on the rug. It's so dreadful to be poor, sighed Meg, looking down at her old dress. I don't think it's fair for some girls to have pretty things and other girls nothing at all, added little Amy with an injured sniff. We've got father and mother and each other anyhow, said Beth contentedly from her corner. The 4 young faces on which the firelight shone brightened at the cheerful words, but darkened again as Jo said sadly, We haven't got father, and she'll not have him for a long time. She didn't say, perhaps never, but each silently added it, thinking of father away where the fighting was. Nobody spoke for a minute, then Meg said in an altered tone, You know the reason Mother proposed not having any presents this Christmas was because it's going to be a hard winter for everyone, and she thinks we ought not to spend money for pleasure when our men are suffering so in the army. We can't do much, but we can make our little sacrifices. And Meg thought regretfully of all the pretty things she wanted. I don't think the little we should spend would do any good. We've each got $1, and the army wouldn't be much help by our giving that. I agree not to expect anything from Mother or you, but I do want to buy Undine and Sintram for myself, said Jo, who was a bookworm. I plan to spend mine on new music, said Beth with a little sigh. I shall get a nice box of drawing pencils. I really need them, said Amy decidedly. Mother won't wish us to give up everything. Let's each buy what we want and have a little fun. We grub hard to earn it, cried Jo. I know I do, teaching those dreadful children nearly all day when I'm longing to enjoy myself at home, began Meg. You don't have half such a hard time as I do, said Jo. How would you like to be shut up for hours with a nervous, fussy old lady who keeps you trotting and worries you till you're ready to fly out the window or box her ears? It's naughty to fret, but I do think washing dishes and keeping things tidy is the worst work in the world. My hands get so stiff I can't practice good a bit. And Beth looked at her rough hands with a sigh. I don't believe any of you suffer as I do, cried Amy, for you don't have to go to school with impertinent girls who laugh at your dresses and label your father if he isn't rich and insult you when your nose isn't nice. If you mean libel, I'd say so and not talk about labels as if Pa was a pickle bottle, advised Jo. I know what I mean, and you needn't be satirical about it. It's proper to use good words and improve your vocabulary, returned Amy with dignity. Don't peck at one another, children. Don't you wish we had the money Papa lost when we were little, Jo? Dear me, how happy and good we'd be if we had no worries, said Meg. You said the other day you thought we were a deal happier than the King children, for they were fighting and fretting all the time in spite of their money. So I did, Beth. Well, I guess we are, for though we do have to work, we make fun for ourselves and are a pretty jolly set, as Jo would say. Jo does use such slang words, observed Amy, with a reproving look at the long figure stretched on the rug. Jo sat up, put her hands in her apron pockets and began to whistle. Don't, Jo, it's so boyish. That's why I do it. I detest rude, unladylike girls. And I hate affected ninimate chits. Birds in their little nests agree, sang Beth, the peacemaker. Really, girls, you are both to be blamed, said Meg, beginning to lecture in her elder sisterly fashion. You are old enough to leave off boyish tricks and behave better, Josephine. Now you are so tall and turn up your hair, you should remember that you are a young lady. I ain't, and if turning up my hair makes me one, I'll wear it in 2 tails till I'm 20, cried Jo, pulling off her net and shaking down a chestnut mane. I hate to think I've got to grow up and be Miss March and wear long gowns and look as prim as a china aster. I can't get over my disappointment in not being a boy, and it's worse than ever now, for I'm dying to go and fight with Papa, and I can only stay at home and knit like a poky old woman. And Jo shook the blue army sock till the needles rattled like castanets. Poor Jo. It's too bad, but it can't be helped. So you must try to be contented with making your name boyish and playing brother to us girls, said Beth, stroking the rough head at her knee. As for you, Amy, continued Meg, you're altogether too particular and prim. Your ears are funny now, but you'll grow up an affected little goose if you don't take care. If Jo is a tomboy and Amy a goose, what am I, please? Asked Beth. You're a dear and nothing else, answered Meg warmly, and no one contradicted her, for the mouse was the pet of the family. Margaret, the eldest of the four, was 16 and very pretty, being plump and fair, with large eyes, plenty of soft brown hair, a sweet mouth and white hands, of which she was rather vain. 15-year-old Jo was very tall, thin and brown, and reminded one of a colt, for she never seemed to know what to do with her long limbs. She had a decided mouth, a comical nose, and sharp grey eyes. Her long, thick hair was her one beauty, but it was usually bundled into a net to be out of her way. Round shoulders had Jo, big hands and feet, a flyaway look to her clothes, and the uncomfortable appearance of a girl who was rapidly shooting up into a woman and didn't like it. Elizabeth, or Beth as everyone called her, was a rosy, smooth-haired, bright-eyed girl of 13, with a shy manner, a timid voice and a peaceful expression, which was seldom disturbed. She seemed to live in a happy world of her own, only venturing out to meet the few whom she trusted and loved. Amy, though the youngest, was a most important person, in her own opinion. A regular snow maiden, with blue eyes and yellow hair curling on her shoulders, pale and slender, and always carrying herself like a young lady mindful of her manners. The clock struck 6, and Beth put a pair of slippers down to warm. Somehow the sight of the old shoes had a good effect upon the girls, for Mother was coming. Meg stopped lecturing and lit the lamp. Amy got out of the easy chair without being asked, and Jo forgot how tired she was as she sat up to hold the slippers nearer to the blaze. They are quite worn out. Marmee must have a new pair. I thought I'd get her some with my dollar, said Beth. No, I shall, cried Amy. I'm the oldest, began Meg, but Jo cut in with a decided, I'm the man of the family now Papa's away, and I shall provide the slippers. I tell you what we'll do, said Beth. Let's each get her something for Christmas and not get anything for ourselves. That's like you, dear. What will we get? Exclaimed Jo. Everyone thought soberly for a minute, then Meg announced, I shall give her a nice pair of gloves. Army shoes, best to be had, cried Jo. Some handkerchiefs, all hemmed, said Beth. I'll get a little bottle of cologne. It won't cost much, so I'll have some left to buy something for me, added Amy. Let Marmee think we are getting things for ourselves and then surprise her. We must go shopping tomorrow afternoon, Meg. There are lots to do about the play for Christmas night, said Jo. I don't mean to act any more after this time. I'm getting too old for such things, observed Meg. You won't stop, I know, as long as you can trail round in a white gown with your hair down and wear gold-papered jewellery, said Jo. We ought to rehearse tonight. Come here, Amy, and do the fainting scene, for you're as stiff as a poker. I can't help it. I don't choose to make myself black and blue tumbling flat. If I can go down easily, I'll drop. If I can't, I shall fall into a chair and be graceful. I don't care if Hugo comes at me with a pistol, replied Amy. Do it this way. Clasp your hands so and stagger across the room crying, Rodrigo, save me, save me! And away went Jo with a scream which was truly thrilling. Amy followed, but she jerked herself along as if she went by machinery, and her ow was more suggestive of pins being run into her than of fear. Jo gave a groan, and Meg laughed outright, while Beth let her bread burn as she watched the fun with interest. It's no use. Do the best you can when the time comes, and if the audience shout, don't blame me. Come on, Meg. Then things went smoothly, for Don Pedro edified the world in a speech of 2 pages without a single break. Hagar the witch chanted an awful incantation over her kettle full of simmering toads with weird effect. Rodrigo rent his chains asunder manfully, and Hugo died in agonies of remorse and arsenic, with a wild ha! Ha! Glad to find you so merry, my girls, said a cheery voice at the door, and actors and audience turned to welcome a stout motherly lady with a "Can I help you?" look about her. Well, dearies, how have you got on today? Has anyone called, Beth? How is your cold, Meg? Jo, you look tired to death. Come and kiss me, baby." While making these maternal inquiries, Mrs. March got her wet things off, her hot slippers on, and sitting down in the easy chair, drew Amy to her lap. The girls flew about trying to make things comfortable. Meg arranged the tea table. Jo brought wood, dropping, overturning and clattering everything she touched. Beth trotted to and fro between parlour and kitchen, quiet and busy, while Amy gave directions as she sat with her hands folded. As they gathered about the table, Mrs. March said with a happy face, "I've got a treat for you after supper." A bright smile went round like a streak of sunshine. Beth clapped her hands, regardless of the hot biscuit she held, and Jo tossed up her napkin, crying, "A letter! 3 cheers for father." "Yes, a nice long letter. He sends all sorts of loving wishes for Christmas, and an especial message to you girls," said Mrs. March. "I think it was so splendid of father to go as a chaplain when he was too old to be drafted and not strong enough for a soldier," said Meg. "Don't. I wish I could go as a drummer or a nurse," exclaimed Jo with a groan. "When will he come home, Marmee?" asked Beth with a little quiver in her voice. "Not for many months, dear, unless he is sick." They all drew to the fire, Mother in the big chair with Beth at her feet, Meg and Amy perched on either arm of the chair, and Jo leaning on the back. It was a cheerful letter, full of lively descriptions of camp life, marches and military news, and only at the end did the writer's heart overflow with fatherly love and longing for the little girls at home. "Give them all my dear love and a kiss. Remind them that while we wait, we may all work so that those hard days need not be wasted. I know they will be living children to you, fighting their bosom enemies bravely, and conquer themselves so beautifully that when I come back to them, I may be prouder than ever of my little women." Everybody sniffed when they came to that part. Jo wasn't ashamed of the great tear that dropped off the end of her nose, and Amy never minded the rumpling of her curls as she hid her face on her mother's shoulder and sobbed out, "I am a selfish pig, but I'll truly try to be better." "We all will," cried Meg. "I think too much of my looks and hate to work, but won't any more. I'll try and be what he loves to call me, a little woman, and not be rough and wild, but do my duty here instead of wanting to be somewhere else," said Jo, thinking that keeping her temper at home was a much harder task than facing a rebel or two. Beth said nothing, but wiped her tears with the blue army sock and began to knit with all her might, losing no time in doing the duty that lay nearest her. Mrs. March broke the silence that followed Jo's words by saying in her cheery voice, "Do you remember how you used to play Pilgrim's Progress? Nothing delighted you more than have me tie my piece bags on your back for burdens, give you hats and sticks and rolls of paper, and let you travel through the house from the cellar, which was the city of destruction, up to the housetop where you had all the lovely things you could collect to make a celestial city. What fun it was, especially going by the lions, fighting Apollyon, and passing through the valley where the hobgoblins were," said Jo. "I liked the place where the bundles fell off and tumbled downstairs," said Meg. "My favourite part was when we came out on the flat roof where our flowers and arbours and pretty things were, and all stood and sang for joy up there in the sunshine," said Beth. "If I wasn't too old for such things, I'd rather like to play it over again," said Amy, who began to talk of renouncing childish things at the mature age of 12. "We are never too old for this, my dear, because it is a play we are playing all the time one way or another. Our burdens are here, our road is before us, and the longing for goodness and happiness is the guide that leads us through many troubles and mistakes to the peace which is a true celestial city. No, my little pilgrims, suppose you begin again, not in play, but in earnest, and see how far on you can get before father comes home." "Really, Mother? Where are our bundles?" asked Amy. "Each of you told what your burden was just now, except Beth. I rather think she hasn't got any," said her mother. "Yes, I have. Mine is dishes and dusters, and envying girls with nice pianos, and being afraid of people." Beth's bundle was such a funny one that everyone wanted to laugh, but nobody did, for it would have hurt her feelings very much. "We were in the Slough of Despond tonight, and Mother came and pulled us out, as Help did in the book. We ought to have our roll of directions like Christian. What shall we do about that?" asked Jo. "Look under your pillows Christmas morning, and you will find your guidebook," replied Mrs. March. They talked over the new plan while old Hannah cleared the table. Then out came the 4 little work baskets, and the needles flew as the girls made sheets for Aunt March. It was uninteresting sewing, but tonight no one grumbled. They adopted Jo's plan of dividing the long seams into 4 parts and calling the quarters Europe, Asia, Africa and America, and in that way got on capitally, especially when they talked about the different countries as they stitched their way through them. At 9 they stopped work and sang, as usual, before they went to bed. No one but Beth could get much music out of the old piano, but she had a way of softly touching the yellow keys and making a pleasant accompaniment to the simple songs they sang. Meg had a voice like a flute, and she and her mother led the little choir. Amy chirped like a cricket, and Jo wandered through the airs at her own sweet will, always coming out at the wrong place with a crook or a quaver that spoilt the most pensive tune. They had always done this from the time they could lisp "Crinkle, crinkle, little tar," and it had become a household custom, for their mother was a born singer. The first sound in the morning was her voice as she went about the house singing like a lark, and the last sound at night was the same cheery sound, for the girls never grew too old for that familiar lullaby. I hope you enjoyed this chapter 1 reading of Little Women, and if you would like to read the whole thing, of course it's available on RBdigital, and all you need is your library card to get reading and listening.